Раз. Добрый день, уважаемые друзья, коллеги, участники.
Good afternoon, distinguished friends, participants of the forum, the 16th forum of Kazakhstan. My name is Ramazan Janpisov. I'm the advisor of the Director General ECOJER Association. I'd like to welcome you on the roundtable dedicated to the issues of the renewed obligations design on the national level within the Paris Agreement. Republic of Kazakhstan, as you know, one of the state members who signed this agreement, and all the state participants have the separate work on this commitment till 2030. Kazakhstan is not the exception in this regard for this particular process. Throughout the last 5 or 6 months, on behalf of Ministry of Ecology, have been done a lot on designing the new commitments. We attracted the separate group of modelists, organized the work on forecasting of greenhouse gas emissions within each sector of economy, forecasted the certain scenarios of further development, and from it we got the suggestions on the new climate commitments. That is why that is the key points of discussion for us. For the format, we will have the roundtable in the discussion format. We will have one joint presentation, and then we will try our best to discuss the topic within the comments on the key suggestions provided by the team. Please allow me to introduce the key participants of the discussion. On behalf of the Ministry of Ecology, we have Saule Sabieva, Mansour Oshurbayev, been the one who's been dedicated to participate in this session, but he has the meeting with the present participation. Unfortunately for us, I would like to use the opportunity to thank you for your personal contribution. We'd like to hear more from our specialists in the field of energy. It's not a secret for you that the volume of the greenhouse gas emissions is from the sector of energy generation, heat power plants. That is why I think this sector, not the vulnerable one, but will affect a lot on the capacity, and on behalf of the state bodies, we need to choose the balanced decision in order to achieve the commitments from the one side, and from the other one, mitigate the risks for economy. That is why we will discuss this point also on behalf of the industry. We have the president on the Eurasia, representative from Mitsubishi, Senior Vice President Hiroshi Matsuda.
Participation, it's very great opportunity for us to get and explore more from your vision on the NDC process and the prospects that Kazakhstan can achieve in next 10 years. Генеральный директор Ассоциации ECOJER.
Director General of ECOJER, Kairjan Rukhatulovich. We governed within the Kazakhstan platform, and the Kazakhstan Association is one of the key bridges between the business and government. They impact a lot in within the development of the oil and gas industry and electric energy. And we have the director from the Kaz Energy.
Со стороны сектора.
So actually we have industry represented by the chief of ERG Center, Posopanko Nikolai. So, dearest colleagues, I would like to suggest us starting off the presentations, and after that, as I've said before, we will have a chance to have discussions, not only to engage not only the participants sitting at the round table, but please don't hesitate and contribute as much as you can. Baltabayev Konesh Sirikovich, Executive Director, ECOJER Association. So he's going to be making a presentation on behalf of the Ministry of Ecology in regards to how NDC 3.0 has been developed. Thank you and good afternoon. Allow me, please, to introduce the intermediate results of NDC 3.0, and those outcomes are to be approved in October. So last week, the working group has looked at those outcomes, and we would like to propose them to be discussed further. In order for us to take into account as many opinions of the parties concerned as possible. And overall, I'd like to say that there's no need to talk about the importance of NDC, as it was said by the moderator. The requirement on updating the NDC is something that we're committed to. Every 5 years, we are to report about our national contributions, and they have to be more grandiose compared to the earlier given commitments. And I would like to draw your attention to the fact that NDC is not a document that puts limits over the companies from greenhouse gas emissions, but also this is an instrument demonstrating the ambitions of the country in terms of diversifying its economy and changing the structure of emissions, and consequently it demonstrates to the investors what sectors of industry they could invest to, and what industries could be supported with low carbon investments and green investments. And at the same time, NDC is a great tool in order to have ESG practice, and this is a good opportunities to receive some incentive-based funding. And actually, the project of NDC was received in the beginning of the year, and actually there were articles on adaptation to the changes in climate, and NDC 3.0 is to be demonstrated in what finance they need for actual updating the actions that were purposed to achieve the objectives of NDC. And this map in particular will include the indicators and the financial information that is needed. And part of the finance will be insured by the donors and loans, and some of them will be provided at the beneficiary. I mean, at the incentive-based loans and public investment and changes into the climate-related policies. So actually, in regards to developing this scenario, Stockholm Institute was responsible for this process, and actually every third NDC worldwide was the product of the Stockholm Institute, and 65 countries engaged with the Stockholm Institute of Ecology in order for them to assist in regards to developing NDCs. And the Ministry of Ecology in this regard also decided to use the best practice, and we've also addressed this consultant. And consequently, in regards to the estimations of the Stockholm Institute, it is planned that the baseline scenario, including energy balance and the plans for energy sector development up to 2030, the intention is to keep the status that we currently have. So should this scenario be adopted, the emissions by 2035 will grow, and it will amount to 396 million. And the consultant has recommended to use the reduction scenario, inevitable scenario to reduce, and it includes the mitigation scenarios, so the growth of renewables, the reduction of emissions and wastes, the intensification of countering degradation of pastures, and this will enable us to have emissions in the amount of 311 tons of CO2. So the conditional scenario, should there be additional investment in technology, so consequently this forecast will enable us to have the commitment in the amount of 247 million tons of CO2. So here comes the delta on a graph, and this is the baseline and inevitable target. So how much CO2 needs to be reduced, and as it was recommended by the consultant, we're talking about 85 million tons per decade. This is something that we have to reduce. This is a pretty ambitious figure. In case if you have it split it, then on an annual basis we have to have the reduction in the amount of 0.5 million ton of CO2. So in order for us to have an understanding of how much it is, this is the entire quota-based sector of producing fossil fuels plus all chemical industry. So altogether, this is something that they emit. So 8.5 million tons of CO2 per year. So the consultants also mentioned that in reality, should Kazakhstan comply with NDC 2.0 up to 320 million, then for 5 years we need to reduce by 17 million or 3.4 million tons of CO2 on an annual basis starting from 2031 to 2035. And there's some scenario and plans that will enable us to reduce the emissions by up to 311 million tons, and this includes the growth of renewables, shrinking of coal generation by 34%, and plus the end use of gas will also be reduced. And central gas heating is going to be electrified, and besides, it is planned to have better efficiency of utility sector, so it will be 350 housing abutments be equipped with the energy efficiency equipment, and plus there's going to be better efficiency of transportation. So we will have 925,000 of electric cars that will be replacing old type diesel cars. In regards to Stockholm Institute,
определенных инвестиций.
These actions will need to be supported by the investments, and the report tells us that there's going to be a need in 98 billion, but the majority of investment is a redistribution of monetary flows from hydrocarbon to low carbon sector, and this will enable us to have less expenses by $36 billion in the period up to 2030, and from 2031 to 2030 to have a less $11.8 billion spent in case if the Republic is going to commit to having 311 million tons of CO2. So should the Republic be trying to achieve 247 million tons of CO2. Then there's going to be a need in 12.9 billion additional up to 2030, and then there's going to be a need for additional investments up to 2035. So over here you could see the marks in regards to the reduction. In accordance with Stockholm Institute, in fact, the reduction by 18% is estimated as fast and achievable victories. Those are the actions that won't need to have a huge investment, or this investment is going to be returned within a decade. As I have demonstrated earlier, so the total investment is going to be, as it was estimated by the consultant, the entire NDC investment will lead to the fact that Kazakhstan will eventually have a profit in the amount of $33.6 billion. At the same time, should Kazakhstan tackle more ambitious goals, which is more than 19%, then the future modernization of industry will need more massive investment that will not be reimbursed within a decade. This is unlikely. And as I've said to you before, there were some consultations within the working group, and so firstly we consulted with the energy sector that prevails actually in terms of CO2 emissions, and they're more sensitive towards the objectives that are being planned to be taken within NDC. And again, based on the consultations, what do we have identified? The coal generation in Kazakhstan is going to be growing by 7,000 megawatt, and at the same time the gas generation is going to grow as well. And at the same time we plan that up to 2035 there's going to be nuclear facilities up to 5 gigawatt, and the new construction within next national program is going to be 21.4 thousand megawatt, and consequently the key conclusions is that the coal generation isn't going to be shrinked, and we requested the consultants to have the model including that aspect. So there's some risks in terms of gas generation, as there's a deficit in trade gas, and while implementing all of the plans, the price for trade gas is going to grow up to $230 US per 1,000 cubic meters. Taking into account logistics, and at the same time there's some doubts in regards to the growth of renewables, and while consulting with renewables department under the Ministry of Energy, there's a confident focus saying that by 2030 the renewables share will be 16%. There's no focus in regards to 2035. However, there's risks of sustainability of the system, and the ability of KIGOC actually to consume much more renewables, so that there is no chance of lockouts. And based on all of these consultations, ECOJER, as a member of the working group, proposed to have the alternative plan to be adopted by the ministry. Now it is being discussed, and in fact we think that even though if the Republic is going to be committed to 17% of reduction, and this actually is going to be pretty ambitious, and you could see that in case if the baseline scenario is going to be reached, to have coal and gas growing, then we will need to reduce 74 million which is by 9 million tons of CO2 less than whatever is suggested by Stockholm Institute of Ecology. However, it's still very ambitious, but at the same time, this objective has more perspectives. So actually, in case if we're going to be following NDC and having 327 million tons of CO2, we will need to have 6 plus more million tons and ensure the emissions in the amount of 322 million tons of CO2. So at the same time, we think that our forecast is based on the fact that the coal generation in reality may not be shrinked and reduced. And firstly, it is related to not to the fact of generating the electricity, but with ensuring heating, enough heating. And in this regard, the consultants worked on the recommendations for ECOJER with having coal generation remaining, but thanks to nuclear generation, we would like to suggest to put down that the share of renewables and alternative energy is going to grow by 27% in the total energy balance. So actually, there's going to be 16/18 million of renewables, and the rest is 4 gigawatt will be compensated by nuclear. So together with the Ministry of Ecology, we have discussed the ambitious goals on shrinking the waste by 7% and recycling growth by 40%. And actually, this approach is going to enable us to reduce methane emissions, and this will actually contribute to the overall reduction of emissions. So, as it was said by the consultants, the methane emissions in Kazakhstan will not in reality go down. There's a chance of having the emissions reduced in the oil and gas sector thanks to LDAR projects, leak detection and repair, but in fact this is going to enable us to reduce overall methane emissions by 7%. And we have also collected data on the plans of companies in order to decarbonize. So we put together energy audit reports. And what we see is that within the framework of that approach, we were able to have the analysis of maximum expenses for decarbonization. So from 600 measures provided by the companies to us, we see that the potential for reduction is 37 million. And therefore, we suggest to the Ministry of Ecology to have the ambitious goal in the amount of 19%, not taken into account. So we suggest to commit more than 15, but less than it is recommended by the international consultant. Again, going back about the results of MACC, so we assessed 600 measures and 28.2 billion is something that we need to invest. And actually, please don't pay attention to the details, and those are the items that we will need to consult about in addition with the companies. So there's measures that are actually overestimated and some of them are underestimated. So in any way, those are the figures that came from the bottom to the top. Those are not the figures that we made it up, not the experts made up. This was something that was provided by the companies or provided within the framework of energy audits conducted. So what we can see on the curve is that taking into account the climate agenda, when the price for carbon is less than $1, so in reality, actually, this is a pretty low indicator. And at the same time, I'd like to say that the measures of MACC is something that will be implemented from 2025 up to 2035. And the current price for carbon doesn't let us, in fact, to reach NDCs 2.0. Not even mentioning about reaching out NDC 3.0 and having more ambitions. And at the same time, subject to $20, this is the average price. In fact, we could reduce by 25 million tons of CO2, but should we follow Article 6, which is about $40, so this is 30.8 million tons of CO2 that could be implemented. So based on whatever I've just reported about, what we can see is that, in fact, Republic of Kazakhstan is in a position that NDC 3.0 is really critical, and all objectives and commitments will need us to amend both legal framework amendments and in reality, even though if we keep 15%, this is going to be ambitious as well. But the question is how to interpret the Paris Agreement, so on whether we can actually leave the same objective on an annual basis. And the key message is that we need to review the tariff policy and the subjects to tariff regulation, to include the stations, need to have the expenses for decarbonization, the quota expenses, and in this regard, within the framework of the current legislation, what we suggest is to have the forecasted prices for carbon, to have the minimum and maximum. We're not talking about the case while you're actually selling higher or lower than the price forecasted by the Ministry of Ecology. The operator is not a subject to sanctions. We have a clear understanding that the price is being formed by the market, but at the same time we understand that currently there is no target set. So what price is going to be provided within a horizon of 3, 5, 10 years? And based on this fact, by investing into decarbonization, you step up in the river, the depth of which you don't know. You have no idea whether this project is going to be leading to return of investment or not. So actually, while having the low price for CO2, your measures aren't going to be efficient, right? In case our prices are low, from the international perspective, and most of the technologies come from abroad, and as a result, a lot of measures become economically inefficient, and very often it is more profitable for the companies just to enter the market and purchase a quota for 70 cents rather than to modernize something at the facilities, because nobody understands whether it is beneficial to invest into decarbonization or it is not. And consequently, the focus to prices for 5 to 10 years is just an opportunity to understand for ourselves on whether to invest into the measure or not, or to just purchase the quota at the market. So again, this is whatever has to do with the business. In regards to the Ministry of Energy, should the Ministry of Ecology provide the forecasted prices, then we will need to have an understanding of how much money we need to envisage under the tariff, so that the heating stations or electricity stations could either purchase the quota or invest so much into decarbonization. I understand that the law of electricity generation says that whatever that impacts upon the production of electricity, but at the same time, in my interpretation, for instance, decarbonization impacts upon the generation of power. In case if we limit the Ekibastos hydro station by 17 million tons, by 15 million tons, then the generation could go up to 15 million tons. And we would like to address both the Ministry of Energy and Ministry of Ecology and to have that money forecasted under the tariff. But on the other hand, this may lead to a lack of alleged opinions saying that the coal generation is always cheaper than renewables, and this will stimulate the industrial stations and the large consumers to perhaps have renewables for their own needs. And we have this practice, and our colleagues from Eurasian Group do experience this. Kazmunaygas has this practice, and other partners do have this. And actually, it's better to invest into renewables, and then consequently to be less dependent from external trajectories. Please. You have consumed almost all of our time, so please. In addition, the proposal is to ensure the access to cheap and loan money. So Article 6 helps to decarbonize. And we would like to ask the Ministry of Ecology to have Article 6 to not forget about the quoted industries, as the benefit could be mutual. So we could decarbonize the large facilities, but at the same time, the Article 6 is going to be correcting the carbon budget, and then this will impact upon the quotas, and the quoted operators will not be interested in all of the quota leaving Kazakhstan. So briefly, those are the key moments we wanted to present. If you have any questions, we will be more than happy to respond.
Серикович, уважаемые коллеги, еще раз хотел напомнить, что у нас сегодня...
Thank you. I would like to remind you that the roundtable is being conducted in a discussion format, so please don't hesitate to raise your hand. And please ask the questions individually. So actually, Sungat, I wanted to listen to your opinion. But before doing that, I wanted to ask Saule, as the key regulator responsible for the development of climate agenda in Kazakhstan. Please tell us more if you have something to add. Perhaps something got missed, as this presentation was in regards to the approach of the ministry. So perhaps we need to put something into account, so please. Thank you very much, dear participants, to today's roundtable. Yes, indeed, NDC 3.0 currently is very essential, and we are at the stage of the most active stage once the draft of NDC was developed by the NDC team, and we are now having it adopted, and we have consultations in industrial sectors, and it's hard to find a compromise while putting this document together. And we do have country commitments under Paris agreements in order to reduce, we have all of the targets and so on. And the second side of the document is something that we need to discuss from the positive standpoint, which is to attract the investment into the technologies. And the best practices demonstrate that the countries who criticize a green agenda, they actively invest into the sector. They attract investments into the clean energy. China, for instance, is very, very prominent in terms of technology development in transport, electric cars, and so on. So actually, there's a window of opportunities for Kazakhstan to attract green investments and to reach out to the targets. So the question is not that we're going to be subject to sanctions in order for us to lift up the ambitions, and at the same time we're not going to be achieving them. No, the question is whether the investment is here or not. But if in case if we don't demonstrate the commitment, the investment and funding isn't going to be available for Kazakhstan. The team has provided great forecast for NDC, the scenarios. Thank you so much to ECOJER for alternative proposals and the Ministry of Ecology partners with the Ministry of Energy. We are discussing the proposals, and indeed it's important to agree on the document, and we're putting together the action plan. And we are able to have the discussions of each and every sector. There are some proposals from ECOJER, so 2%, so 17 or 19%. This is something that we treat as an ambition, enabling us to demonstrate the commitment of the country as we have contributed to the UN General Assembly. It was conducted last week from September 20 to September 27, and actually talking about the mitigation sector, reduction of emissions. This commitment demonstrates a better share of renewables, clean energy, modernizing the technologies, attracting more technologies, more new technologies, and the sector of adaptation, agriculture. Those are very, very important sectors, and we also have opportunities. So loss and damage, this is something that exists in climate agenda. It's important to attract investment in this sector, as well as to intensify our efforts in agriculture and forestry. And Article 6 opens up a lot of opportunities, and I think, dearest colleagues, that we could have a discussion. So thank you so much for putting this roundtable together. It has been organized at the high time in order for us to listen to all of the parties concerned and your opinion, as well as to enable us to finalize our position on NDC in order for us to make a presentation at the conference, which is going to be held in Brazil in November. Thank you so much, Madam Sabieva. So we have heard about the targeted objectives and the way forward that we have to be concentrated on. So in regards to our NDCs, and you have reviewed the process on Sungat. It's so important to listen to your comment, and then after you, I would like to give the floor to Jandos, so that you could comment in regards to how achievable those objectives are and how adequate they were, and tell us more about transformation of oil and gas, electric generation, and how this is going to be contributing to NDC. Thank you so much. So first of all, I would like to greet you all. So good evening. So actually, welcome to Forum of ECOJER. So welcome, and we've talked about the energy sector. Now we are about to start the discussion around the ecology. It was very logical. So actually, thank you so much. I would like to continue in Russia. So in fact, while talking yesterday, I talked to Kuanish and Ramazan, and other colleague was supposed to be making a presentation, but as far as I'm concerned, Kuanish said that we are the one who contribute to the emissions the most. I just wanted to be looking positive, but after the comment Kuanish made, I have to spend more than 3 minutes of your time. So actually, in the beginning, when we had side meetings, the unconditional agenda sounds pretty scary. But anyway, I would like to say that this is just the opinion of the industry. As far as I'm concerned, 0.7% of emissions is something that will contribute to saving the planet, Saulia, shouldn't be taking me as an offender, but, we do have 2060, which is carbon neutrality commitment, right? So 0 emissions. We have 2050. We are to have renewables in the amount of 50% of the energy balance. So the rest has to be dirty or whatever you call it. So it is inevitable for us not to have the emissions, and I would like to address Guanish. Coal, traditional, whatever, isn't cheaper. Renewables are cheaper at the moment, technologies are evolving, but at the same time, we have to understand that renewables is something that is not stable, one. Number two is that it is not going to be changing the ecology, We need a lot of heating, We keep working with the Asian Development Bank and we've been consulting, and they keep saying to us, let's use the heating pumps, and let's replace electricity by wind, in case if we put the pumps, in Kazakhstan, -40, we will be frozen to death, right? So we have to face the reality and the way we are to do it. So in regards to the technical studies, I understand. I'm not going to be criticizing international consultants, and with Jandos, we've hired a lot of consultants, in these areas, However, we have to understand the reality that we have in Kazakhstan, the practice of other countries who have other, different weather conditions, different prices, no issues, 17 gigawatt of solar, 13 gigawatt of, storage. Okay, fine, 30 cents. Put the price, 20 cents, we will be number one in the world, but the matter is all around the tariff and the pricing. We had the consultation council and they said, well, we don't have any objections in regards to renewables, but the key point is the tariff. The approach is saying, give us as much as we want, and you will get it. So how can we provide a tariff? So from one hand, we are fighting for, waste management. So our colleagues keep saying that we are against burning the waste. But the tariff in the amount of 55 tenge, if you are ready to pay, okay, we'll be the first to do it. So actually, whatever you said about Kuanish, we have no objections. Our law allows us to do so. And Jandos, I believe you contributed, to that. And in all of the invest projects, we're allowed to have up to 30% spent for filters and so on. And the norm is that to have a standalone package of support efforts, within the ecological code. Thank you so much. I would like to support the Ministry of Ecology. We had the postponed by 5 years, and we have completed 22 roadmaps, And as a governmental official, I signed it, and now they come up for money, saying, we need some money, right? So actually the coal modernization, coal stations, they are in compliance with the ecological code and with the European BREF and so on and so forth. But they're coal, right? They're not going to be stopping to emit. They will continue emitting. And I believe that we will just capture CO2, then I don't believe in us closing the coal stations, sorry. So we'd rather capture CO2. So, and one more point. In fact, going back to roadmaps, we shouldn't be going in depth into those roadmaps. We have plenty of them. We don't have enough time to control, whatever we're signing. So we have to just unify all of the goals. So whatever is beyond my competence, you mentioned about electric cars. I don't believe in this idea as much as you do. And I don't believe that there's going to be many machines, of that kind. There's different weather conditions. The electric car is good to go in the south, but if you are not lucky enough, you don't have a garage in your own, electric station and charger in your own garage, then it's not convenient actually to drive an electric car. Almaty is okay, but just imagine the northern Kazakhstan. In pandemic, coal stations were still in operation, but the air became crystal clear. So let's us be honest. It's not because of coal; it's because of transportation. So actually, you kept saying about whether 17 or 19. I don't get it. I would rather having 15%, let's say 385 million tons of CO2. That was something that Kazakhstan emitted back in 1990. Now we want to have it in the amount of 311 million tons of CO2. But we shouldn't be just directing. Energy sector just reduce it by 40%. Mansour didn't come. But he said, I'm not going to be having any profit in agriculture. So you are the one to make sure that I make benefit, and profit. So anyway, the price is all about the finance. We are good to go. But, before the lunch, I was contributing to the governmental meeting, and I was criticized for high tariffs at the moment. And what you suggest is to lift them up even more. I want my colleagues, please don't bring me in, because I will be sticking to the reality. So thank you so much for giving me a chance to share. Thank you so much, Sungat. Well, indeed, this is a very important commentary, and this dialogue is to take place. And you were absolutely right while saying that, yes, indeed, any targets could be set, but the issue is what the price is, the price to implement it. And the milestone actually is the access to funds and how to bring the, green or low carbon projects, So there could be some approaches. So from one standpoint, it could be tariffs, but it's not the recipe for all. But the question is how to make sure that there's a value of each single ton of CO2. So if there's adequate market pricing, whether it is going to be enhancing the implementation of the project or not. There's going to be economic efficiency, and the market is going to be contributing to the projects, right? International lending, so Article 6, there are different options available. So I think that the value of the updated NDC is that in addition to modeling and so on and so forth, there's going to be investment plan developed. And the actual projects will be identified as well as the investments, how much we need. Because attracting the investment from the international financial institutions is something that is inevitable without knowing for sure the climate agenda of the country, the sectors identified as priority ones. So should there be a plan, this discovers the chances on how you could attract investments to the country. So, Žandos, my question is for you. I wanted to address you and listen to your opinion, because Kazenergy is the leading association comprised of largest oil and gas and energy assets. So how adequate the approaches are? Perhaps you have your own proposals taking into account your vast experience. You used to be a system operator, and now on behalf of Kazakhstan. So thank you so much, Ramazan. So firstly, I would like to thank ECOJER as we addressed the organizers of the forum so that we could discuss ecology. We have gathered not to make photos, right? And NDC 3, the actors of the industry would like to see. Thank you so much to the Ministry of Ecology. Soli, thank you so very much for being in contact. I understand how complex it is. We have international commitments. We have domestic reality, different signals coming from different sources to include of a political nature and so on. So listening to your presentation, what I've realized is that NDC 3.0 is, I don't know, actually, who's going to be promoting it, because it is, frankly, non-achievable, taking into account the current commitment that we are lacking, is something that we are to contribute from a cardinal standpoint, going back to the sectors of the economy. This is not a hype from me, but in fact, I used to be raising the issue. The strategy for low carbon, for carbon neutrality, is something that has been miscalculated, and 30% of all emissions come from the industry Sungat represents, so the rest lies in other industries. Again, going back about the association comprised of oil and gas, so 70% of production belongs to three companies, giant companies. They're all public. They have long-term strategy. They all support the methane pledge, and they keep saying, okay, fine, we will reduce our emissions. We will arrange the environment, both environmental, legal, and so on, so that we could invest into environmental protection. And those are the only companies who do it, the largest oil and gas players. And unfortunately, I don't see any initiatives coming from the smaller size enterprises in oil and gas or elsewhere. Sauli said that the market is open to the initiative, but there's no tangible actions. There's a gap not only in funding, but in technology. We're talking about the old generation of technologies. We shouldn't be complicating it. Nikolai may argue that you will contribute from the ecological standpoint. We made an analysis, but again, going back to reduction, we had to follow the steps of China. They construct something new, and close out the older generation. But this is the simplest way forward. But we have agriculture, we have transport. And again, I said to you before that the financial conditions are different. This is not oil and gas. But again, with all my respect and the importance of the issue, what I can come up with is that we are not here to make a secret or something, discreet something. The current target is not achievable. We need to have alternative decisions made. Again, this is not just my personal opinion. The other speakers were invited, but, should you invite me, I think that I have to express my opinion. Again, I understand your pain. We are full of enthusiasm to keep working, but at the same time, our objective within the framework of the Kazakhstan strategy, we are to adopt the decarbonization strategy for oil and gas. We work with the oil and gas companies, and together with the ECOJER and Ministry of Ecology and the Ministry of Energy, those who are responsible for tariffs, this is something that we will offer you to consider. Thank you. And I wanted to mention that oil and gas sector is one of the elite actors in decarbonization, despite the fact that there have been active efforts in order to keep up the production And at the same time, they have contributed a lot in developing new initiatives. And why our three largest oil and gas projects are the flagman, and they are pretty effective from the compliance standpoint in regards to emissions, discharge, and so on. And this includes following the green agenda, and the role of the regulator also matters a lot. Again, talking about the three largest projects, the product goes for export. And majority of the commodities are purposed for the European Union, and the methane pledge is something that they have to commit to, because otherwise their commodities won't be competitive in Europe. Plus, we have a lot of initiatives in mining. One of the leaders is ECOJER. Just a week ago, we had a chance to visit the industrial facilities, and we were pleased to see the approaches that they have in regards to NDCs. And all those NDC doesn't actually have to do directly with the greenhouse gas emissions. But Nikolai, I just wanted to comment, and I wanted to ask Mr. Hiroshi, as our honorable guest, who came all the way down from a long distance to participate to this roundtable. Please share your vision with us. We have gathered here today. However, in fact, we meet during different meeting sessions, and we're aware about the positions of each and every party representing Kazakhstan. So we would like to listen to a fresh opinion, so as an outsider, could you please tell us?
Much for having me today for this very important event. Those who don't know Mitsubishi Heavy, there are lots of Mitsubishi Group companies, but Mitsubishi Heavy Industries is a technology provider or a supplier of infrastructure facilities, such as power station, steelmaking facilities, industrial large heat pumps, compressors for the refinery, etc., etc. And in the area of energy transition, carbon neutrality, we are now actively developing the technologies to contribute to this carbon neutrality, such as hydrogen-fired gas turbine, carbon capture facilities, hydrogen producers, etc., etc. But I'd like to say that the obligation of the manufacturer or technology provider is make every technology available in front of you. And how can I say, which technology you will select, a combination of the technologies, would be up to the policymaker or finally consumers or individuals of the country. Of course, you need to think about taking into account tariff. That is very important, or competitiveness. But each country has to discuss its own path away and decide its roadmap. That is what I would like to say. After adopting the strategy for achieving carbon neutrality by 2060 in 2023, Kazakhstan is progressing with its nationality NDC. And as we all know, the next step ahead is the submission of the 3.0 revision. As a traditional coal country, Kazakhstan's energy sector accounts for 77% of all greenhouse gas emissions. So the transition of the energy sector will be the key to achieve the ambition set out in NDC. Over the past years, we have talked a lot about energy security, meaning that just energy transition should keep the energy affordable for people and business and safeguard them from the impact of geopolitics. For developing countries and especially so-called emerging markets, I think Kazakhstan is one of them, we should also think of energy competitiveness. The race for AI-driven growth and related services require enormous energy resources, which should be also stable and reliable. Of course, renewables such as solar and wind is very, very important to achieve carbon neutrality. But there are two energy sources that combine high reliability with great decarbonization potential: nuclear and high-efficiency gas turbines, gas firings. Of course, MHI is one of the suppliers of nuclear reactors. Construction of nuclear plants needs very long lead times, high capital expenditure, and is the subject of active public debate. I understand that, in Kazakhstan, recently you have passed referendum for nuclear plant. This is why most of the growth the growth we see in power supply for AI is driven by high-efficiency gas turbines, not nuclear. What's more, gas turbines are an option to decarbonize aging municipal CHP, combined heat and power plants, and boiler houses, which cannot be done with nuclear. At Mitsubishi Heavy Industries Group and Mitsubishi Power, we are closely working with stakeholders in Kazakhstan to introduce high-efficient gas turbines to various CHP power plants located in energy-deficient regions. It is worth mentioning that gas as a transition fuel is also rightfully written in Kazakhstan's strategy for achieving carbon neutrality by 2060. Especially for large gas turbines with an efficiency of around 64%, which can be supplied hydrogen-ready, it is feasible to attract international finance, which is happening also in Kazakhstan now. My second point is about the importance of pursuing a just and pragmatic energy transition. For countries like Kazakhstan, which have historically relied on coal, a swift phase-out of coal could impose significant economic and social costs. The focus should be on reducing emissions from existing coal assets in the near term through modernization, efficiency upgrades, and emission control technologies. This includes not only reducing CO2, but also improving local air quality. At Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, we are working with Samrak Energo and other partners to support smart retrofit that lower emissions and enhance reliability. Over time, we see potential for carbon capture technologies to be integrated into these systems, turning legacy infrastructure into part of the solution for net zero. This is an area where MHI has lots of experience across the globe. My final consideration relates to grid reliability. In the context of a growing share of renewable sources, this subject has received lots of attention after a recent blackout in Europe and other areas. As one of the world's leading OEM, original equipment manufacturer, we have deep knowledge on the operation of equipment such as gas turbine, coal-fired plant, and nuclear, including long-term impact and cost effectiveness. We cooperate with national governments such as Uzbekistan to run simulations on the power market and study grid stability in condition with a high share of renewable energy source. This includes considerations on how to minimize the curtailment ratio of renewables, when your wind farm simply cannot operate due to grid constraints. We also look at how to maintain grid frequency and power balance to ensure that steel or fertilizer plants do not have to shut down for days, imposing huge loss. We believe that such careful studies are especially important for Kazakhstan, where there is high renewable energy potential, but at the same time, severe grid constraints and limited operational flexibility. In summary, Kazakhstan's national roadmap for its NDC must go beyond declarations. It should define a practical and actionable plan. The considerations I mentioned earlier are just a few among many, and open discussion among industry experts is essential to support the government in taking the right steps. In this context, I believe this Kazakh Energy Forum is one of the most important platforms to exchange opinions and promote a thoughtful and well-balanced approach for policymakers. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Hiroshi. Небольшой вопрос к вам, господин Хироши.
There's a small question for you. How do you assess the potential of international cooperation under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement? And perhaps we could use GCM. Japan is very active in this regard.
Yes, to achieve the, how can I say, NDC or carbon neutrality, Article 6 is a very, very important role. For example, Japan, it's a very small country. We don't have enough renewable resources. And as you may know, we import lots of oil, gas, other resources. So we think that, we cannot achieve carbon neutrality by ourselves in Japan. We need some kind of a certificate. So now Japanese government is promoting JCM. I think this scheme benefits both Japan and also counterpart countries. And finally, it's good for the, how can I say, global or world to anyhow reduce the emission. So issue is that, we have to establish a detailed mechanism on how we could, how can I say, achieve Article 6 realities. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks a lot. Nikolai Yuryevich.
So, Nikolai Yuryevich, your comment, and Rustem. After Nikolai, we will ask for you to comment and maybe a couple of questions from the participants, and then we will sum up because we are behind the time. So do I have like 5 minutes? Yep, okay. So indeed, I would like to thank the organizers for an opportunity to contribute to the roundtable, and yes, indeed. This was a very critical issue for the state of Kazakhstan, and unfortunately, not all of you understand, of all of the parties concerned, understand the essence of those commitments. And actually, the new regulation, thank you so much, Jandos. Let me start by updating you what barriers we have in regards to the NDCs.
The key meaning of the decarbonization and ERG put it into the attention within the hype of these topics. That been a time when the international community been vulnerable due to the future perspectives of decarbonizations and so on, and so they've got the key target, the absolute one, and the other types of them, and formulated the range of documentations. The key example of this been the Europe, and the most of our clients started to purchase our products. ERG provided the products like the alloys and so on. And of course, we cannot ignore this tendency and start to go deeper into this issue. For the ERG, it's almost the 18% of the emissions, and for the Paris Agreement commitments of the Kazakhstan, I would like to say that we will be the participants of this process, and of course, then the world seen the reality, which has been completely different, and the key aim being to achieve these indications. And for the electric energy price, it's been 30 cents and so on. They started to switch off the heat energy and sleep under the covers and so on. But we are not ready to pay the beneficial payments for this and for alloys. And unfortunately, we do not see the returns from the process. And referring to the ERG position, we cannot take other position except of the rational one. We introduced the first wind field with the total capacity of 3 gigawatts. Apart from this, in the portfolio of the development, we have several projects on the gas consumption decrease, the ferroalloys, the renewable energy projects, the wide range of sections of the portfolio, and the reality formulates our further direction of action. The key point is that the prices are continue to grow, and the requirements are strict, and even for the difference on the price for carbon, we still have the projects on decarbonization, to be honest. And we do implement the projects for the soon several years, but unfortunately it's not enough for the complete decrease of CO2 emissions. The key priority for us is on the iron project, and unfortunately it will bring to the additional emissions in the country. We need to introduce the additional coal block, and that will add 1.5 tons more. From the other perspective, we decreased it, but at the same time we still have such a difference. And there is also some concern on the situation we are in. We will have the further developments in the fields of decarbonization, but the economy continues to grow. The key growth is in average 15%, and it doesn't seem to be realistic to achieve everything within the time limits we have. Apart from this, we pay attention to the things happening all around the world on the CBAN and regulation. They've shared on the new requirements for reporting, and we do see that this legislation is changing based on the key tendencies. The same is for the targets and the rules for reporting on the country's activity. They will change also. I would like to give one example for you. We started the construction of the iron plant that's been involved certain investments, and that will give the new potential for the country in terms of energy consumption and the gas emissions. And that is against the Paris Agreement's commitments. But for the hot iron packages covering the export markets here, it will decrease the greenhouse gas emissions because it produces the steel from this process based on the traditional process. In this particular regard, it is hard to estimate everything within the Paris agreements and other types of agreements. And for the target itself, it seems to be not the perfect step forward, and we need to reconsider it once again, because the business which is quite active in this regard, reformulated the key objectives for the futures. And I think that for the government, it's essential to formulate the realistic aims for the further development within the decarbonization. For us, we identify the particular indicator being realistic for us. It will require a lot of investments, but still we are able to do so. And we need to have the rational approach, because if we have the non-realistic point of view, we limit ourselves. Also, for the capture of the CO2, it's quite expensive for the moment. And the third point I would like to cover is referring to the things which will help us to move in the right directions. For the businesses, for instance, we consider the different investment projects, and we cannot postpone the planning or simply answering to their hard questions, formulate the further development and use of the technology. It doesn't matter what kind of technology we are referring to, the decarbonization or the other ones. And here I have several instances. First of one regarding the renewable energy sources. The deficiency of the energy could be covered through the construction of the plants of this cheap energy sources. The new coal is less than 36 tenge per kilowatt per hour is the minimum which we should have. The same is for the nuclear power plants. In this case, we should not put the barriers for the renewable energy sources. The priority workload for the coal and gas stations will impose the additional barrier for the renewables. And here, Mr. Matsuda mentioned the important aspect of the right modeling in this field for given the new impetus for the processes and introduce more renewable energy sources. For the Kazakhstan, we have a very low price for the energy, but we are at the risk to lose this priority. For the sixth article, which has been mentioned by the Kaunas, we plan to implement this into the legislation of the Kazakhstan, but here we haven't covered the industry. Why not? That is the key priority and opportunity for the future cooperation with our partners and for the liability of the choice. Taking into consideration the decisions made by the governments on what we are building for the future, here we covered the new generations, the decades. There is a necessity to have a comprehensive assessment of the current situation. We need to evaluate the taxes and their impacts on the future path of growth, and also optimize the processes. If we would like to have a further improvement of the AI, we cannot count on the expensive energy. If we will lose access to the cheap energy, that will affect the process a lot. And the great example been mentioned by one of the Kazakhstani companies, they have the estimation for the $1 billion in terms of providing the cheaper energy sources.
Well, in fact, that's all that I wanted to report about. Thank you so much, Nikolai. That was a very essential comments that you made. Allow me, please, to make a small comment to Nikolai. You briefed us about all of the issues that we're experiencing, so actually I wanted to provide a comment in regards to the renewables. I'm not here to criticize Kigot, but you don't identify the development of renewables. You act as a systemic operator, and you could actually tell us about your concerns. We are all for the renewables, but renewables is cheap. The auctions demonstrate that it is 12 tenge per kilowatt hour, but it is not stable. Again, I'm reiterating. We keep saying that we have 3,000 megawatt of solar and wind, 1.5 each, gigawatt, but I don't, believe in it. And this message in June, they provided just 20 megawatt, from 3 gigawatt. They, in reality, could produce 20 megawatt. I didn't believe, I called Mr. Kerimkulov, he brought me the report on the wind, and there was no wind whatsoever. Maybe somewhere, it was elsewhere, but not at the points where we have the wind farms. Okay, fine. I agree. We got to have the wind. We have to rely on wind, but we got to have a storage, right? We got to have the batteries. Okay, I agree. We have to keep developing it. But what you guys do is you manage to have 150 megawatt, right? But, okay. You don't need you don't demand any storage. You want a cheap tariff and so on and so forth. But we gotta find a balance. In regards to energy supply. Yes, okay, renewables are good to go, but when it comes to heating, we shouldn't be depriving ourselves from renewables. But it's not going to address our demand. Okay, so Sungat. I want to say that I'm here in a different capacity, up to 2019. I used to be working at Kazakhstan, and I could have told you, okay, the NIR, that's a dead end, nothing's going to happen. Since, I have joined the ECOJER 5 years ago, right? So I'm on the side of the good. I'm on the side of the enlightenment and not in darkness. So actually, since your founders are oil and gas, energy, mining, and environmental protection, and this actually demonstrates the truth. We used to be, visiting aluminium plant, but we saw your your filters, that you have installed on your plants, and the general director is very firm. He said that this enables us to have less solid waste by so-and-so reduced, But that's not cheap. This is a strategy of the company, the same for the oil and gas. 3 operators demonstrate why they invest, how much they invest. Yes, it is not cheap, but those are the local examples of social responsibility of the enterprises. And starting from 2019, when we started drafting the ecological code, we keep saying that one Ministry of Ecology or the Ministry of Energy, they are not able of putting together the entire set of public policy. The president has set the trend. And he has reiterated about this in his union address to the people of Kazakhstan. In the most recent union address, we listened to some interesting ideas, but we are waiting for the explanations and clarification on the ideas expressed by the president. However, the global trends aren't going to change, right? No matter how badly we want this, or we keep saying that this is not achievable, we are pragmatic in our estimations, and, okay, fine. Stockholm Institute, that has estimated strategies for 60 countries, this is the counterpart that we keep arguing with, We are a landlocked country in the heart of Eurasia. We don't have any access to the sea. We have a vast territory, but we have benefits. We have natural resources. We have coal, and even taking into account low carbon strategy and carbon neutrality by 2060, we don't say that we're going to be actually saying no to coal, And there's not going to be no to coal in Kazakhstan. We just have to balance it thanks to the other industries. We have to engage other industries that are not being regulated at the moment in terms of emissions. And again, the government is comprised not only of two ministries, we also do have the fiscal ministries who are to make their estimations and tell us how much does it cost. There used to be a system of 700 billion, and in order to achieve NDC, we need 100 billion more, right? So those fiscal experts have to tell us who is going to be in a position to achieve the goals or not. And then the president could say that, yes, we're ready to do, but we are limited in terms of funds, and we have restrictions in terms of the technologies. We have some limits in terms of the approaches. So if you want Kazakhstan to comply, yes, we do have an intention, but you are to help us, the international community. Again, going back to Japan, I remember once we were discussing the quota distribution with our Japanese partners, and as Mr. Hiroshi said, there's two different approaches. You could work either bilaterally or multilaterally, and it's for benefit for all. 15% is a nice figure in terms of NDC, but 19% by 2035 is something not doable. I mean, yes, so 17/19. Well, anyway, the additional reduction is something that is really serious, but at the same time, we keep saying that this is something that we have to take into account as an ambition. And Nikolai mentioned about the development of the industry. We shouldn't be stuck. But again, we have to compensate thanks to the other projects in other industries. Thank you so much. Your message is clear. So again, I'd like to resume that we gotta have the final document, and as within ECOJER and members of Kazenergy, let's put all of ours together and keep working. Thank you. Saulia, just a couple of words, okay. I didn't have a chance to comment all of the proposals and commentaries. I just wanted to explain in regards to inevitable target. This is the objective Kazakhstan took without any financial commitment. As we are not talking about additional funding. This could be found either within Kazakhstan or it could come from some other sources. For instance, Article 6 enables you to provide additional funding, and Japan could be used as a reference. But the commitment to reduce is going to be shared with that country, because Japan isn't achieving the NDC. They just purchase thanks to their technology potential and investing into our country, So there is a chance to have our energy facilities that participate in trading system. So why our price is low? Because we're not motivated to modernize our technologies. For instance, we have the reforms, we have the message of the president, taking into account wear and tear of the equipment and technology modernization guaranteed. But there's no understanding, even though there's a tariff, there's no sustainability. So what is sustainability? This is a share that proposes for decarbonization, so a reduction of pollutions. Mr. Mitsuda said, for instance, the pollutions could be taken as a part of NDCs because they impact to the greenhouse gases, right? Thanks to the modernization. Okay, fine, it's expenses. Let's go back to funding. While we were promoting NDCs under ecological code, everybody everybody was asking how much does it cost and so on. So we developed BREF guidelines, We postponed the reform, taking into account social responsibility, right? But energy companies who are able to do that, ERJ does it, renewables is cheap. So please, discuss this in DC today during the roundtable of IRENA up to 2030, 8.2 gigawatt is going to be renewables capacity, right? That's a good commitment to the international financial institutions and foundations to say that we have cheap energy in Kazakhstan thanks to renewables, and we are able to attract the green funding. So, in case if our authorities want to have a strategic vision on decarbonization, this is a sustainable document. So, just energy transition, everybody keeps talking about. We are afraid of coal stations to be closed. We are not going to be limited in the upcoming 10 years, the coal stations. However, to put down the info in regards to losses of the grid, infrastructure projects, CBID is ready to develop the country program with the benefits program for just energy transition. Can't we just demonstrate it as the Egyptians did, right? Kazakhstan isn't going to be deprived of the coal. It's going to be a step by step in order to demonstrate the sustainability. So that was my message. And the second, financial foundations. Now we have to describe the strategy and have it proposed to the Green Fund, right? We are to describe the investment strategy. And I wanted to say that methane pledge and capabilities under Article 6. We have developed a draft law on methane. There's a potential to reduce, again, taking into account CBAM for methane export from 2028. The oil and gas companies do realize that in accordance with OGMP, in accordance with the levels, they are going to be obliged to do that, right? And we keep having the consultations, and what we see is that there is a potential to reduce. We could actually achieve our NDCs thanks to methane. So I'd like for all of us to understand that in order to implement methane projects, we could address Article 6. We can have quotas for non-quoted gases, CO2, and the subjects for quoting could do that. But again, allowing the subjects for quoting to reduce greenhouse gases when we had the regulation mechanism under the trading system, and we provide a limit of quota for the product that you produce without reducing on an annual basis. And of course, our price is going to be low for carbon, right? There's offset additional mechanism. We had it in 2021 under the ecological code. Okay, fine. Reduce your greenhouse gas emissions, have offset additional projects, come to regulator, and we will provide your wallet with the carbon units. And okay, fine, the price is low. But if you don't understand the scheme, the question is in regards to new facilities and new sites. Okay, fine. The spectrum on reduction of emissions is really, really expensive. Give us the volume of emission for the new facility. Okay, but everybody plans it as a part of the investment project. Why in Kazakhstan do we have to keep so this is my personal opinion in regards to whatever has to be done. Thank you so much. And Sorry, once I'm seated in the center, I don't want to be argue with Saule because she is my colleague. And yes, we have an understanding. And the last comment is that they do it in Europe because they have the different tariff, but this is not my point. Today is a day of ecology and the day of NDC. Saule is to wind. So actually, I wanted to thank you. So again, inevitable target is something that I didn't understand correctly. I didn't have A for Russian language. So again, thank you so much. And we can dispute for years because it's a very large-scale topic. And we are far beyond the time frame given to our roundtable. So now let's complete this meeting. While talking about NDCs and greenhouse gas emissions, we're talking about the future. We want our children to live in more comfortable conditions. So I'd like to complete the discussion with the small questions of the philosophical nature.
Словом.
I will pose the questions and you may answer in one word if possible. Nikolai, if you would be able to change one particular case in the past, what a particular case would be? The brave answer. But, Mr. Matsuda, the question is for you. If you'll be able to have the hint look in the future, what you'd like to see?
Very short answer.
Achieve carbon neutrality in the future. But what I'd like to say is that, I'm very encouraging hearing the discussions, very hot discussion, but this will make your country very good. So please continue the discussion and create good idea. I'm very, encouraged the future of the...
Perfect. Thank you very much. Saule, если бы вы...
Saule, if you would be able to build the perfect society from what particular step you'll begin, I would like to commence from the clear air. Sawat Kwatovich, if you would be able to live for the life in someone's body, what kind of life you'll choose? I think I will continue to live my life. If you would be able to suggest one universal truth for the society, what it will be? To clean up to yourself, not to put things into the trash box. If you would be able to ask the question to one particular person, the figure, historical figure, what kind of questions will be? When we will achieve the carbon neutrality? If you'd be able to have one universal superpower, what kind of superpower would like to have? I think the cleverness and rationality, that is the superpower. Thank you so much. That is the end of our discussion. Thank you so much.
Давайте сделаем family picture на память. Не только спикер, может, со всеми участниками.